All right, ready to go? Hi, everybody. Welcome to our panel. Thank you for being with us. Today, we have a panel on responsibility in the age of AI. We have a panel on content moderation. We have a panel on the types of online harms that a lot of people experience on a day-to-day basis. And believe it or not, it is an optimistic panel. And dare I say, it is a celebratory panel. I know it sounds kind of weird. I am Camille François, our moderator. I am the co-founder and president of an NGO called ROOST. It stands for Robust Open Online Safety Tools. I see many of our partners in the room. Thank you for being here. And as a nonprofit, we focus on giving everybody the tools they deserve to understand online safety, to adapt online safety to their own use cases, and then to enhance the tools of online safety to accelerate innovation in this space. And today is a celebratory panel because we are launching a new tool with OpenAI. And so we have a lot of fantastic women and Martin on this panel to celebrate. And I will do a French trick, which is I will summon another French person on a video to give us a little bit of a kickoff. Can I do that? Does it work if I say, let's bring another French woman on stage? Does she appear? Let's try that. Let's do it.
Bonjour à tous. I'm Fiji from OpenAI, and I'm honored to introduce this panel today. Earlier this year at the Paris Action Summit, we became a founding partner of ROOST, a global initiative working to make digital tools safer for everyone, especially young people. And I'm happy to be back just a few months after the creation of ROOST with the first result of the partnership, a new family of open models for safety reasoning. These models allow developers to implement their own safety policies on their platforms, offering flexibility and protection. We have been using reasoning-based safety models internally for some time, so I'm proud that we're now releasing the first open version widely and for free to support the entire global AI safety community. We truly believe that building safe AI requires all of us to work together across borders and sectors. This milestone is just one piece of our ongoing commitment to build safer technology and innovate in collaboration with the community. We look forward to continuing this work with all of you, hearing your feedback, and I can't wait to see the impact that ROOST will have in the years ahead. Merci and enjoy the conversation.
Merci, Fiji. Ryan, let's come to you first. As the VP of Product Policy at OpenAI, I understand that it is your model that is being launched today.
It is very exciting. We announced this and launched this about an hour ago, so hot off the press.
Just to be clear, that means everybody now can go download it on
exactly
Hugging Face.
Through Hugging Face in partnership with ROOST. As Fiji mentioned, this is an incredibly exciting milestone for safety and our commitment with ROOST to the ecosystem of players that really need the first-class technologies in order to mitigate harm and risk and build a global ecosystem that is safe. So this is tried and true in our DNA. Maria was asking me right before the panel, like, why did OpenAI decide to do this? And it is truly because our mission is to build AI and help ensure that it benefits humanity, that it builds positive social impact, it improves people's lives. And we know that safety and our work on safety, we cannot go at it alone. It cannot be a competitive advantage. It has to be something that is shared and empowered across the dynamic ecosystem of developers. And that is the only way our mission and a future world that is democratic, that is free, where AI is actually improving lives is possible. So we are thrilled to release this today. GPT OSS Safeguard, as Fiji mentioned, is an open weight model that lets you take any policy or any description of harm you're trying to prevent or things you're trying to classify and use natural language and describe that harm. And the reasoning model will identify content and it will display its chain of thought reasoning and how it is interpreting your policies, how it is making decisions in a super transparent way. So what's amazing about this for my team team and for safety teams and the safety system team at OpenAI is we're able to calibrate and customize and try to make sure we have precision in real time with real language when we are looking for things like misuse of AI for bioweapons development. That takes a lot of iteration, and it takes a really advanced system to be able to identify really hard dual use, precise instances of misuse. And so this tool has been fantastic for us. It is first class in terms of AI reasoning capabilities applied to safety. It is what we use every day for our work. It has had a phenomenal impact on our ability to do trust and safety and integrity and model safety work. And it's tried and true. It's battle tested. We've operationalized it ourselves, and now we want to help through ROOST, the ecosystem, operationalize this, and developers start to use this tool. And that's why we think this is such a significant moment we're really proud of. I think core to our open source goals here are equipping the developer community and building a lot of proactive generative work on top of this tool. And that is why the collaboration and partnership with ROOST is so fundamental. You know, we came here in February to announce ROOST. I was at the Peace Forum a year ago as well. And today we're showing up with code, and we're showing up with something people can build with. And we're building community with ROOST in terms of trainings and hackathons and engagement and feedback sessions. And that is absolutely critical to our vision of a flourishing safety ecosystem.
I like this new season of progress on moderation, less words, more code. I want to just tee on something that you said. The first thing is that the weights are on Hugging Face. They happen to be on an Apache 2 license. That means this was a one-way door for you guys. They're out in the wild now. Everybody can study them. That matters because you said this is your own model that you use. So if you want to understand what type of model does OpenAI use for Sora, for ChatGPT, for a whole type of, of complex harms, now you can download it, you can have it on your computer, you can study it.
You can also use it. You can operationalize it, build on it. Yeah.
You can modify it. Right? You can build on it. You can come to the hackathon that ROOST is hosting with Hugging Face, with OpenAI. You can make it your own. You can make it your own for your own policies. And we're going to talk a little bit with Martin, with Maria, and of course with Jada about the types of organizations who may have a vested interest in modifying this model and making it their own, right? Jada, from the Hugging Face perspective, you wrote a lot about that sort of new season of safety, where maybe people want to take those tools and modify them. Maybe they want pluralism and content moderation. Talk to us a little bit about that and how GPT OSS Safeguard, we need to get used to that, GPT OSS Safeguard, allows developers everywhere to do just that.
Yeah, I think there's a tension that's always existed between freedom, right, and safety. It's basically one of the most ancient tensions that we have in values in general, like from also philosophical perspective. And so I think that the more we use those kind of tools, the more we also want to understand what's going on, and especially when we have those content moderation triggers that are triggered by our actions, when they're unexplained, I think it gets sometimes also the users frustrated because sometimes they don't understand what they did wrong, or sometimes it's pretty obvious, but sometimes it's not. And so I think that grassroots organizations and coalitions like ROOST, and by the way, we're so happy to be part of it and so happy also to host the hackathon. I think it's important to treat users as more like active users, in a sense where they not only using and consuming like a tool, but also becoming like true actors, where you don't have this kind of paternalistic top-down approach where it's just imposed to users, but they can really and truly understand what's going on. And as you said, where you can also tune it to your use, it becomes more transparent in a way where if it's more understandable, then also I think I'm all about education, and that's also going to help, educate users, not only to understand what's going on, but also maybe to better use those tools. Because if they understand like the underneath moderation process, then it also means that they're going to understand how to better use those models.
That's the reasoning part that Ryan highlighted, right? Ryan, this is the part where the model explains why it's making the decisions that it's making.
Exactly. It uses chain of thought techniques and kind of can expose its logic, which is really important for developers gatekeepers too, right? We want to audit. We want to understand why it's making the decisions it's making or recommending this be classified as a terrorist activity or whatever the harm you're trying to prevent is. That's really important because, we don't want to build black box systems, and we don't want to build systems that are so rigid that we can't calibrate them quickly and adaptively as, for example, adversaries adapt. So anyone who works in the security space knows that your defenses are quickly outmatched as people evolve and try new techniques. In my previous work at another tech company, we had label-based classifiers, which were very hard to iterate on and quickly and required expensive training data. Now you have a really flexible classification and system that, again, can use reasoning and use human logic and be calibrated on the fly. And it's so powerful for us at OpenAI.
So we're going to try something together. We're going to say the two important technical concepts that we're all going to walk away super clear with on that specific model. The first one was the one that Ryan talked about. It's a reasoning model that makes that means that the model will explain to you in proper human language why it's making the decisions that it's making.
It also can infer context, and that's really important. So content moderation is one thing, but in my work and what my teams and the safety teams at OpenAI are looking for is anyone planning a violent attack using these models? And that doesn't look like a single photo or a single piece of text. It actually is contextual to those bad actors and how they're interacting in multiple sessions or different places across the ecosystem. So I think that's really important too. This is very dynamic, and that reasoning logic can apply much broader than kind of pure single piece of content classification.
So that was the first part, reasoning. Second part is what we call BYOP. Stay with me on this one. It stands for bring your own policy. And Jada, I think you can help us understand why this matters in this sort of new season of safety, right? It used to be the case, Ryan, as you said, that, a model has been trained with a very specific policy. For instance, this is the definition of hate speech with a very specific data set. For instance, this is the data that I have annotated as hate speech, and then it could only apply that specific policy. This is not the case for the model that's being released because any organization can bring its own policy. Jada, tell us a little bit about why you think that matters. Then we'll turn to Martin and Maria to hear about use cases for who is going to use these types of model. And Martin, we're going to come to you to sort of explain to us generally the broader picture for what it looks like to build an open source commons that helps people make sure that AI benefits the public interest.
Yeah, so super quickly, I think you mentioned before that pluralism, it's all that matters. It's basically something that maybe it's trivial for us, something that seems like obvious, like, I don't know, it's hard to make like a off the top of my head example, but some policy like content moderation or some content policy stuff that might seem obvious and that could be also universal, but at the very end, basically society, when we also talk about humanity, it's hard to just put inside one single box all humanity. And so it's the same with use cases. So I think it's really important to have like adapted to specific use cases, but also adapted to specific like cultural differences, specific, it could be ways of seeing like the world or envisioning or specific languages. I think it's really important to have this nuanced approach. And this is the right direction to have this because it helps us, as we were saying, not only understanding, but also adapting. And I think adaptation in those cases, it's also something that's going to empower more the community because it feels like it's been like a powerful actor.
Yeah, when we talk about the right to study, the right to modify, the right to use and redistribute, that's the right to modify. Marie, I'm coming to you next, so stop texting. Marie, no, I know you're taking notes. I know.
Yeah.
Maria needs no introduction. She is a Nobel Peace Laureate, and you know her for all of her brave work defending democracy. She wrote an absolutely fabulous book called How to Stand Up to a Dictator. Here's something you don't know about Maria, or maybe you do. She's a real nerd. And she is actually building open source infrastructure for newsrooms. Did you know that? Maria, let's talk a little bit about what is it that you're cooking up, building that open source infrastructure for Rappler, and tell us about who else wants to use safety tools and adapt them for their own purposes.
Oh my gosh, so this is probably the most. So first, I think this panel is an example of enlightened self-interest, right? In the sense, in ASEAN, that was a phrase that we used to use, you know, like I think you've long heard me say big tech in general has been the most exploitative, extractive, predatory. Sorry, guys. But we have no choice but to actually build. And one of the things I love, I work with Camille at Columbia University, where ROOST, Robust Open Online Safety Tools, was incubated. And literally, Camille is the most constructive person coming up, even as X was firing 83% of their safety engineers. She was working with the people inside whose task it is to keep us safe. Right? They don't have the largest voice necessarily, but together, I think this is what ROOST has been able to do. About 3 years ago, so I'm tired of telling you the problem, and so we began to build, right? And who else can use what Open Hugging Face and OpenAI, what they've released and what ROOST has released, right? Is a platform on the matrix protocol. So what we think, you've heard me say, the future of news. Small and medium scale news organizations, maybe even the largest ones, can die within a year. Guys, within a year, right? I can see if you look at all the data, 6 to 8 months. And so 3 years ago, I got tired of begging big tech to pay attention and anchor on facts so we can have a shared reality. This is when Camille came in and said, Maria, no, we can do this. So we built the Matrix Protocol chat app for news organizations. There are now roughly almost 70 different news organizations in the Philippines using the Matrix Protocol. It was just rolled out. And what does the Matrix Protocol need? Exactly what ROOST is rolling out. Trust and safety tools that are incredibly expensive. Ryan can tell us how expensive, incredibly expensive, right? At some points, tens of millions of dollars. And so when they roll this out for Element, which is the private company that rolled out the Matrix Protocol. By the way, the French government, the German government, all those websites are on the Matrix Protocol. But content moderation is a huge burden. They cannot do it. And with what has been released, I love it's ladies surrounding Martin, right? I mean, with what has been released, this gives us a fighting chance. So who will use this? Our Matrix Protocol, which has a federated news use case in the Philippines. Now, we rolled it out in December 2023, and now it's working, right? We did our midterm elections on it. I'd say the last thing is this. The women, it's not just because they're women, but voices like this need to gain more power in the hierarchy of big tech. Because if you don't, this then harms the very people whose data have been commodified, right? So I've always said impunity is largest in big tech industries, but doesn't help to tear everything down. It does help to build bottom up. So thank you. Thank you.
Ryan, thank you.
Sorry to be a downer, just reminding you of the context, right? Let's go back to optimism.
No, I was like, this is true. Ryan, you brought the open out of OpenAI for this. We are grateful. Jada, I think that there's a lot we can learn too from Hugging Face on showing what a different path in AI could be. You know, we talked about more local models. We talked about smaller models. We talked about open source models. Martin, you've been so patient, surrounded by women, letting us talk about the word we want to see. And with Current AI, a large platform that was also launched at the February AI Action Summit, you are building a whole ecosystem of people who are pushing for a different type of AI, an AI that benefits the public interest. Tell us a little bit about how that connects to this conversation and what else we should be looking at to accelerate in this direction.
Thanks. Thank you, Camille. So what I was thinking of doing is zooming out a little bit. Current AI is a global public-private partnership that was one of the main deliverables at the AI Action Summit that I'm very fortunate to chair and been working with many of you in the room and closely with Camille and others to help build. Our vision overall is an AI that is by all and for all. And for that, openness in artificial intelligence is absolutely key. So we were thrilled in the run-up to the summit and at the summit to be closely partnering with the ROOST initiative. What I wanted to talk about a little bit is the how. What I've learned a lot about from this particular approach is actually the method, right? Taking, first of all, a unit of analysis being the ecosystem, looking at trust and safety, and then asking the builders, asking the engineers, like, what are the problems that you face on a day-to-day basis? And then building out from there. So that's the first step. It might sound obvious, but it's not usually the way that we're working in the field. So starting with that from an empirical perspective. And then afterwards, what I thought was the brilliant piece is asking or trying to understand what are the common tools that can be used in the open that will benefit the whole ecosystem. So for me, these are the building blocks of effectively public goods in artificial intelligence. And so I've learned a huge amount. My team has learned a huge amount from this initiative, from the ROOST initiative, from the great work that's being launched today. And I see it as both critical in the trust and safety space, but also highly applicable in other ecosystems. So as part of Current AI, we have 3 initial programs that we're launching. One of them is on linguistic diversity. A lot of the work that we're doing right now, without wanting to tease future announcements too much, is focused on exactly that. When you look in this case at linguistic diversity as an ecosystem, as a field, what are the needs, what are the gaps, and what are the common tools that we can put out in the open that then become building blocks for that openness that we seek in artificial intelligence. So that's why I'm really excited about it. It's also, and I'll finish with this, we're at a time in AI, and I was one of the envoys for the summit. We spoke about that less, I would say, in 24, but we spoke about it a lot afterwards, and that's on sovereignty, questions of digital sovereignty, questions of AI sovereignty. And there'll be a big event in Berlin in a few weeks on that topic. I think a key part for me also of the lesson of all of this great work that's been announced here is that public goods in AI and AI sovereignty go hand in hand, right? It's not possible for any one country to be sovereign along the whole stack, and I would say that neither is it desirable. So the focus area for us is really to identify on an ecosystem by ecosystem basis, looking at the different stacks, saying, right, here are the tools that we need to have in common. Here are the public goods in artificial intelligence. And from the Current AI perspective, that's where our commitment comes in, both to finance them, to co-finance them, to help build them and really lift them off the ground. So thank you.
Great. I want to hear from you also. This is a great moment of celebration. Thank you for bringing your optimism and enthusiasm. I want to hear from you where we go next, right? Like we said, building an open source safety commons for the AI age. One model isn't going to do it. Since the founding of ROOST, which was in February, as we said, I'm really happy to report that this is the second major tech company to show up and to say, I'm going to give you my tools. I'm going to do the engineering work, because this takes a lot of engineering work, right? Like the ROOST team worked hand in hand with the OpenAI teams for a month to try to identify what is the most helpful thing to do. How do we set it up?
And this reflects years of engineering work on behalf of OpenAI and the safety systems teams too, with that collaboration to get it to the release stage. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible achievement, but I love the question on where we go next, Camille.
Yeah.
I think my answer to that question is sort of what you were starting to build upon. I want to do less talking and more doing. I would love for forums like this to bring together working groups so that we are drafting evals on human rights versus talking solely about human rights, or we are testing and building new pieces of infrastructure, iterating on policies. I think this is a really important moment with these launches, with Discord's launch as well, where this code base is out there and it is time to really invest in a broad safety community and developer community. This is not a space that has been invested in, Maria, per your point, very heavily, even at the large tech companies that can afford it. These are small teams that have to do a lot with very little. And it is time to supercharge our ecosystem of developers committed to safety, because this is not some place where one company can go alone, or where safety can be a competitive advantage, or assets should be gated for one place or another. I want to get us into building, though. I think there's a lot of great ideas, and events like this are so productive in getting people to come together. But anytime we talk about a safety issue, we should imagine it leading to a pull request or imagine it leading to an eval. Otherwise, we're sort of manufacturing consensus, but we're not operationalizing it. And I think that's the most important thing for us is how can we roll up our sleeves as a result of these launches and continue to get tech organizations to contribute and build and equip a broader ecosystem.
Ryan, can I ask a quick question on this, right? Like,
do it.
how can we help you get a CEO? So for example, we know this now because it's been documented in a company like Facebook, a 1% drop in revenue was not worth giving up trust and safety. How can we help you make the CEO understand that this is enlightened self-interest?
I think you have to continue holding us accountable. And when I'm able to do my most effective work, it's because there's a real issue that real people are talking about. And I find it actually really empowering when people highlight safety issues. I need to hear that. I want to hear that. I want that pressure. That makes my ability to achieve and do my job so much stronger, and so it's so much more important and visceral. So I do think it is like researchers, academics, developer communities, anyone outside of these organizations needs to continue to study and understand the real world impacts of these platforms and write about that, highlight that, and then also realize that there's a lot of people in these organizations who are really good, who are really committed to safety, and who are trying to solve sometimes really impossible, hard trade-off problems. And so my second piece is just continue to coalition build. When you're in one of these companies, you very quickly have empathy where you realize everything is actually shades of gray, nothing is black or white, and you actually have to make decisions. And those decisions have trade-offs, and every decision has a trade-off which way. So I think coalition building and finding the organizations and teams to support within these companies, collaborating on open source technology, and cross coalitions are really, really important. And kind of anyone who really cares about safety and really cares about positive impacts of these tools has to be willing, I think, to work with those institutions because that's the way we drive progress, and it's a really important ecosystem dynamic.
And Ryan, credit to you and the team for not just joining the ROOST coalition, but for walking the walk. You drop the model, you put it on Hugging Face. It has a real Apache 2 license. People can download it. People can study it. People can modify it. They can reuse it, use it for their own purposes. It's a one-way door. It's a big deal. We have not seen a lot of tech companies do this. It's your own model. It's not some toy that you let the people play with. It's your own model. So I will say more companies do that.
I will say this is a no-brainer for OpenAI. There was no resistance to this. This was an obvious thing we had to do because we built an incredible piece of safety technology using the most advanced AI researchers in the world. And that technology has to be shared for our mission to be true. So there was not a moment of hesitation internally about whether this was the right thing to do or not. This had to be released because we cannot alone as one platform solve the ecosystem safety challenges. And we want everyone who's using or interacting with AI to be safe for kids, to be safe from violence and misuse and manipulation. And this is a no-brainer for us. This needed to go to the world.
If you are a developer listening to this, or if you're any organization or individual interested in this, you're like, well, I want to study it, I want to modify it, I want to build on this, please come to our hackathon. We're co-hosting a hackathon with Hugging Face and OpenAI and ROOST for people to actually, go and do the building.
Will you keep it updated?
Yes. And we're hoping the developer community will help us build and keep it updated and refreshed. Like, again, success for us looks like a flora and fauna, and this is just the beginning. It is not the end or a single release.
To that point, we are today launching an open model community with ROOST.
Yes.
Because there are, in fact, moderation models already out there. There's a series of moderation models already out there. We never had a powerful reasoning BYOP model. But that also means that people look at all these open models and say, okay, well, how do we eval them? We have an enormous problem with safety evals in this field. How do we compare them? How do we improve them? And for that, we think that we can raise the bar for innovation and safety by hosting all the researchers and the developers in an open community, the ROOST open model community, for everybody to look at and improve what we have in the open source safety commons. I promised that we would hear from everybody about where do we want to go next, because the open source safety commons needs a little bit more than what we already started to pour in it. Martin, tell us about what else you want to see in this realm.
So I'm gonna, just so you know, I'm gonna flip a question, ask it to you
Hi.
in a second. So when you and I started talking over 2 years ago about this, you were saying that one of the issues was that two communities you were part of weren't talking to each other, right? The engineering community on one hand and the people you knew well on the policy side on the other hand. This is a great start. And as you've mentioned, it's just a start. So I think for me, there's one question. There's two futures which are related in one question. One future is to build an open source safety commons. What are they saying? These communities that you've brought together, the policy side and the engineering side, what I'd like to know as a funder, what I'd like to know both with the collaborative and the current AI hat on is what else do you need in addition to what's being announced today? What does it look like so that it is a thriving safety commons? And we're looking at this from an ecosystem scale. So that's one piece, and I'll hand it to you and back to you in 1 second. The other piece is what I mentioned before. I think one of the futures for this is that the trust and safety piece is critical. We need the other parts as well. So we need to understand what the issue looks like when you look at linguistic diversity. How do we build global data platforms for linguistic diversity? We need to do the same work for health. I think the area of health and AI is dismal right now. We need to have data standards on health. We need to build these in the open to really understand that and push innovation in data in the same way that we've pushed innovation in compute and AI. So that's that piece. But coming back to the safety commons one, as someone who cares deeply about ROOST as part of our family, what do you think is needed?
That's unfair. Maria and Jetta, I'm coming to you for more questions. Just quickly on this, Ryan talked about it briefly. It's about changing the conversations that we've had up until now on online safety. We have let a lot of organizations go around in circles and say, we have very powerful safety tools, very, very powerful safety tools. And now the answer to this should be, okay, great. Can I download them? Can I study them? Can I make it my own? Can I redistribute them? Can I build a business on it? Can I build a research lab on it? Can I adapt it to a new use case? Can I make it work for my language? Can I make it work for the stuff I care about? Can I make it work for my community? And I think that should be the new normal. It's very significant that OpenAI is doing this with their own model right now. That really contributes to helping us say, this is now how we engage with online safety. This is a new bar for what we can expect from everybody at a moment where the harms are really accelerating. And we need people to be equipped with more tools and to be able to make it their own if we want to catch up with the pace of technology. We cannot allow safety to lag behind, frankly, the way it has been for a little while. So Maria, with this, coming to you, what else do you want to see in the open source commons of safety tools? What do you need? What do you feel like using?
I mean, first of all, again, congratulations to ROOST, to OpenAI, to us, right? Let me say what OpenAI will get by doing this, which is for most companies, if you do the same thing, the big tech companies, you're going to get free labor. Your code will be stress tested, it will be adapted in a whole different way. But what do I want to see? I've been pushing for a very long time for public interest technology, right? That means this mediated space where everything is going up into the virtual world, we are being turned into the virtual world, that everything here is ours. We talked about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I see Michelle was around here, right? Many people here are fighting for journalists who have been, largest number of journalists killed at any period of recorded history is now. So deliberative technology, public interest technology, more of the ability to work together, right? Because finding that collaborative way forward is the way, because laws take a long time and governments tend to not sometimes know what they're doing. But you had better learn. Last thing is, again, I go to the future of news, right? I'm here as a journalist. A lot of the tech that has rolled out is not anchored in facts, and that has had an impact on our societies. 72% of the world today is now electing illiberal leaders democratically. We are being changed. And I hope that the big tech companies in particular, take the same enlightened self-interest route. But the last part of this, sorry, there's so many stakeholders that I need to talk to. News organizations, get off your butts and move, right? Because if we do not adapt this tech, it's now open source, right? We die. Sorry, we have to move.
Jenna, you want to take it from here?
I know, sorry.
Tell us about what you want to see, what developers want to see. Maria, I love that you remind us that developers are not just people who work at big tech company, but you are right that like the people who work at big tech companies also benefit from people building upon their own system. That's how we accelerate innovation. About that, Jada, tell us about what you see developers wanting, and in your role, with your lens, ethical lens, what do you want to see in the open source safety commons?
Well, of course, everything that's already been said. And I think that we talked a lot about developers, but I also think that part of the community, it's really like plain users, like individual users. And I think like initiatives like this one can really teach like common users, I would say like individuals, like everybody, to understand what they're using. And once again, becoming, like, as I was saying, like concrete and active actors. And I think that's what I want to see. So it's not just like, okay, you have big tech companies giving us new tools and we have organizations as well. And that's amazing. But I think it's important also to include, and when I talk about users, it's also civil society. That's why I don't know, initiatives like this one or those kind of panels are important to also teach to everybody and also to explain to everybody that it's not some black box, as you were saying. And by the way, it's like a term that I always hated because it means that AI, it's not understandable. And I think I'm the proof that I have a philosophy background and I work in tech, and I've been working in tech since 2019 now. And I think it's important that we all understand what we're using and we all understand how those new tools and new mechanism can work, like, and have an impact on our world. So what I do want to see is the community gathering, and not only like around developers and big tech companies and those that are already maybe familiar with those kind of technologies, but also, and I think that's where we excel at Hugging Face, it's to lower the barrier of entry. And so I think it's important to include everybody in the equation.
I didn't even ask you to define what Hugging Face is and how you are fulfilling this mission to give everybody the means to go and play around with those models. So let's just put this context.
Yeah, so Hugging Face, it's a collaborative open source platform. It means that basically everybody, and not just developers or researchers or tech industry people, can go and basically pick a data set, pick a model, and eventually also deploy a full app, which we call spaces, which are demos. And the real mission is really to democratize the access to those tools, and also, as we were saying, to educate and make AI basically available to anyone. And so that's, we foster this through our tools, through documentation a lot, through initiatives like these ones. And so it's by building the community around them and building, like, empowering truly users by those things that we can make also AI more understandable and more useful for daily uses.
And today you can now get GPT OSS Safeguard on Hugging Face.
You can.
Martin.
Just a really quick rejoinder. I thought that was a brilliant point and a really helpful one. In the realm of social media, we've had a problem for years of transparency and really being able to understand how the approach works, how the algorithm works, what the role of investigative journalists would be, what the role of civil society should be. So I think, coming on to your point, another way of looking at this is from an audit and accountability perspective. These are effectively like these open source building blocks that we were talking about earlier. They're also accountability tools. They're also tools that will help all of these different actors. And I think looking at the different ecosystems, there's a whole ecosystem of work around audit and accountability, which has been like relatively, I would say, moribund over the past few years and really needs to be reinvigorated. So giving these approaches where you can really peer and look under the hood will be helpful for a whole host of other actors. So I just wanted to emphasize that great point. Thank you.
I'll build on that, Martin, because I think, Jada, you talked about this, the fact that like this helps bring other people into the conversation. And Ryan, you and I talked a lot about how for a long time, the safety conversation has been a bit insular.
Absolutely.
And now, for instance, when we think about self-harm, I mean, you've acknowledged too that this model is used for complex harms like self-harms.
Right.
What we need is to bring people in the conversation who has a diverse expertise. Maybe they don't work for tech companies. Maybe they're clinical experts. Maybe they're psychiatrists. Maybe they are victims. Maybe they are families. Maybe they are civil society and researchers. And I'm hoping that those open source tools, Martin, to your point, and those communities that we're creating around them help bring a broader set of eyes, a broader set of expertise into making the tools we deserve to keep everybody safe in the AI era.
I think that's so fundamentally important. We have to not only be building shared infrastructure, but shared understanding and shared strategies and shared accountability frameworks. Trust and safety, in my kind of background so far, has been very closed. It has been one organization as one council defines one thing, ships that technology, and makes Instagram safer. And in actuality, everyone in this room has no tolerance for some of the largest internet harms. Child safety. The world should have solved child safety issues online by now. And the reason it hasn't is because of closed gatekeeping and like people locking down and building technology for one org. That is the kind of tragedy and challenge, I think, of the tech space for me. I think about this a lot. Why haven't we really, really solved the issue of child exploitation or exploitative imagery? And it's not because the technology doesn't exist or good actors don't exist. It really is because we haven't done collective action in an open and honest and authentic way. And we have let people operate in silos and make a dent in their corner of the world. And that we have to stop because AI and all of these systems, this is an ecosystem that is multi-plural and interactive. We're not talking anymore about one platform being the only place where people go. We're talking about a very multidisciplinary ecosystem of people, tools, companies, organizations, nonprofits, journalists. And we have to update the way we work together in order to really get this right for the future of humanity.
We heard that so clearly from the engineering teams in safety that we engaged with at Roost. Many people said, I have been a safety engineer. My whole career is to go from one organization to the other and rebuild the same basic stuff. And by the time I can get to basic stuff and finally actually move the ball forward, bring the innovation, I am moved to another team. And so this is also to make sure that people who are talented safety engineers, people who are talented safety teams can no longer have to reinvent the wheel every time and really build from an open source, solid, robust commons of tools so that we accelerate innovation and we get to finally tackling some of those challenges. You're right to point to the gatekeeping in the industry. This is something that we've thought a lot about that's really hurting safety. We've done too much gatekeeping here. Martin, I know you have thoughts there. Maria, I know you want to close us out. So let's go Martin, Maria.
I have a question for Martin, though.
You can do that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I got to remind you about the Global South, right? Because I come from the Global South, and you know that if you are marginalized in any way in the real world, you are further marginalized online. So the question actually is more, as everything moves online, in some of our countries where there isn't enough money to be made for the companies, there isn't a lot spent on trust and safety. And so we're left to fend on our own. And so I guess current AI, Martin, this is the same thing that's happened with news, right? News organizations in the Global South, and what you're actually going to hear from the International Fund for Public Interest Media, which is right after this, talk about a plug. We are working on the Global South to bring this in, because now I actually think the Global North needs the Global South. So Martin, current AI, right? What about resources, networks, and kind of the way to bring us all together? Money. Sorry to leave him with that.
I'll be brief. I've got an eye on the time as well. So we work in 10 different countries in the Global South. We work in Morocco, we work in Nigeria, Kenya, work in Chile, work very closely with India. I think what's critical there is to look at it from an ecosystem perspective, to work with private as well as public actors. A lot of what we bring in here also are the public actors to build these public goods, to bring private money, to bring risk capital, to build these, and then the public money comes in to bring them to scale. That's a very short answer. what I just wanted to say as well is to strongly +1 on Ryan's points, the piece about the silos. We have to break the silos in these fields. I think this conversation has been fantastic. Part of what I've really learned a lot from this conversation just now is looking at it more than an open source safety commons, but an openness in AI commons where we're blowing up these silos and bringing together the communities working on audit and accountability together with those working on safety. To the point I was mentioning earlier, in health are the similar types of issues. This is what we need to work on. But I think starting from a very practical, concrete perspective, as you've done, is brilliant.
I have to make one quick point, which is to thank Camille and to thank Roost for being the engine of change here and really facilitating collaboration and exchange. They have been essential to OpenAI's rollout of this technology along with Hugging Face, but more importantly, this panel exists because of Camille and because of Roost. And the way that you are building community and investment and innovation in open source safety tooling is going to have a profound impact on the world. And I just want to make sure you get your flowers and credit for all of the important work that Roost is doing and will do.
You know, this means we all trust Camille, is the thing, right?
All
It's
right.
the speed of trust.
I'm going to become too red. This is a timeout. Thank you so much for coming to celebrate this with us. I could not be more proud to do this alongside all of you. I'm excited that you can all download and play with this model. But as we said, this is the beginning. There is so much more to come. Welcome to a new season of safety. Welcome to a new season of public interest AI. Together, we are creating the infrastructure, we are creating the communities, we are creating the path for faster collaborations amongst a diverse set of expertise. Thank you for being part of this journey together.
Thank you.